Bonjour mes amis, hi guys. A couple of viewers sent me messages or commented in the videos regarding shopping in secondhand watches or new watches in Hong Kong, asking where to go, wondering if the prices are better, and even asking which watches I would recommend as an investment. I'm guessing if you listen to different videos on YouTube, you will already know that watches in general, 99% are not a great investment. However, I think it's worth discussing it. And I was in Mongkok again yesterday, so you can see on the first images here a bit of an update on the current stocks available there and the prices. There is vintage, there is new stuff, recent models, and it really makes all the difference when you are shopping secondhand. While buying recent stocks, let's say the last 10 years of productions of Rolex or most of the watches, but I think Rolex is usually solid enough to last more than 10 years without a service. You can be fairly confident in your purchase. But when you're looking at complications, older watches, you have to be really careful going to these shops. Now, what's exciting about Hong Kong is that you have a big concentration in those areas like Mongkok, Yo Ma Tei, TST, all on the Kowloon side. And then there's a few more shops on the Hong Kong side, on the island side. You have this exotic location and this concentration of second-hand watches. Second-hand has always, for a long time, many years, been a big business here. Rolex is like a religion, considered like gold here in Hong Kong. So you have a lot of stocks available. Now, prices, are they really better here? I think for the hot steel stuff, the things that's exploded in the past 2 years, the steel models, the Hulk, the Pepsi, prices are pretty even all around the globe thanks to Chrono24 and all the online dealers. They pretty much adjust. Now, all the foot traffic from tourists had vanished because of the pandemic, and it's still very low, of course. Anyone coming in, as one of the viewers knew before he came, but he had to experience anyway. You'll be stuck at the airport for 10 hours to take your COVID test, and then you'll be stuck in a hotel for 2 weeks for a quarantine before you can really go out in the city. So, despite this absence of foot traffic, there's still enough people here. There's a city of 10 million people. There's enough interest for Rolex at all times from within the city, so that you can never walk at the moment in a shop and find a steel sports model beyond maybe a Milgauss here and there. You mostly find two-tone and precious metals models. You can look back at my previous videos where I explained how this happens, because all those watches will find their way immediately to the second-hand market, because there's this chicken and egg situation whereby everybody believes now that there's an immediate premium on some watches, which has made many people think in the last 2 years that watches are a great investment. And when they say that, they often think about those hot models like the Pepsi GMT, the Daytona. The Daytona was always hot, but since the Pepsi, the market has really exploded, and it's been really pushed by all those new YouTube channels, mine included, all those Instagram pictures that really focus on always the same models. So coming here to buy these, I don't think it's really interesting. You will have a better chance I would say in smaller towns, towns that have been are still very affected by the pandemic situation. I mean, I don't want to really discuss, put that kind of spin on the pandemic. I think we have better, more important things to talk about than watches when people are losing their jobs. But yeah, in Hong Kong, the shops never closed, so it's a very poor place to find anything new. As you can see on the pictures, they go straight to second hand. So the hot steel stuff goes at a premium, and the gold stuff goes a bit lower because the dealers buy the whole bulk at the authorized dealers. And if you are interested in gold pieces, you can get a discount, which is interesting because the authorized dealers are not allowed to give a discount. But if you want the bad girl, for example, you're gonna have to eat up a premium, at least at the moment, until people get it in their mind that in their brain that Rolex steel sports are not rare commodities. They're made in the hundreds of thousands, and eventually this bubble will is going to have to pop. The mentalities will change, or the tastes are going to change. Right now everybody wants this, you know. In the past people wanted the Datejust, and I think the Datejust is a great way to express yourself, your taste, because there's so much more choice, different sizes, different dials, different variations, and I wouldn't be surprised if it came back in fashion soon. As I said before, I think it's one of the most perfect Rolex models for most people's day-to-day life, more than the professional models. Now, moving on. So you see all these shops here lined up. There's vintage, vintage. Even the greatest experts might miss something. So if you're new to watches, yeah, you can rely on the expertise of some of those dealers. Hard to say where to go. The ones that have a big online presence are, for example, the Vintage Concept or Classic Watch Repair. You can always start your search there. But also in New Mate, you have shops that seem to be well staffed and have so much choice. Prices won't be better than anywhere, I think, but at least you have more choice, and maybe more provenance as well, as those watches probably come. Many of them come from Hong Kong, others come from tourists, but sometimes you get box and papers from vintage watches as well. But we'd be really careful, and who knows where the market is going to go tomorrow. Um, yeah, maybe the Hulk is the one to get right now if it gets discontinued. But what is Rolex going to come up with? If that was successful, they'll find something else that's going to be successful as well. Yesterday, I found a Hulk at a lower premium than usual. It was only, I think, around $3,000 premium, but it's still technically still in production, and it's not really my favorite watch. And even if you get it these days, it doesn't feel special anymore to wear Rolex, especially not in Hong Kong. So, like everybody, I get excited. Everybody wants the green, so I want the green. But then you get the green, and one, if it's really an investment that you want, you shouldn't be wearing it, because if you damage it, there goes your investment. Now, Rolex is interesting as an investment because they're very solid, they're made to last, and when you send them for service, you get them back in like new condition. It's harder for the other brands where service will cost more, and the watches are more fragile, not really made to last as long, and so you might have to eat up a lot more service costs unless you put the watches straight to like this Daniel Roth beautiful watch, unless you keep it in a safe and or wear it very scarcely and very very carefully. What I want to talk about now is the risk of going to those second-hand shops and seeking, like I'm doing these days, other things than Rolex, and undiscovered models, which don't really exist, but I mean models that are undervalued. And for example, it can be Gérard Perregaux, it can be GLC, even you could say Panerai and IWC, watches that used to be hot. But often you will want to find something a bit better than you would be used to, some high horology piece, maybe a Vacheron Constantin chronograph, or something like that. The risk you take going to those shops is, first you see the price and you think, you look on internet, you compare it to retail. Retail was 30,000, the price is 13,000. Interesting, man. This watch is totally undervalued. Now let's first understand what you should compare it to. Retail means in that price you have the profit of the authorized dealer. his cost, to be in a fancy location. You have the distribution cost and everything. The real value of the watch to the manufacturer, let's say, is more or less half of that. Maybe 60%, maybe 40%, depends a bit on the type of model. Let's say half of that. So already your $30,000 watch, really, the hype is half of it, and all those costs added is half of it. The real manufacturer, the value to the manufacturer is maybe half of it. So already that $13,000 watch is really, it's not really a big bargain. Uh, we're thinking these days in Rolex terms. Rolex, you pay retail because you want that hot watch, but all the other brands will give you already 15% off at the boutique or at the authorized dealer at least, because they're looking at a 35% kind of margin on those, more or less, to cover all their costs. So really, you should compare to half the retail, and realize that those watches are really hard to sell back to anybody. Dealers won't give you much, and individuals will be very picky with you. But let's say you find a great watch that you love, that you really want, and who knows, maybe that you think could appreciate in value. Dealers are going to look at the outside condition. If it's good enough, or maybe they'll give it a little polish. Your cost when you go to ask a dealer to polish a watch is going to be quite high, but for them it's nothing. They have a polisher, a watchmaker on hand. It's going to cost them nothing. They polish it, it looks good. If it runs reasonably, they might put it into time grapher. If it runs reasonably, they're just going to put it in the window. They're going to give you a warranty, 6 months, hoping the watch is not going to come back, hoping it's going to go offshore, never to be seen again. Often when I walk in the shop, I look like a tourist, obviously being in Hong Kong. So until I talk a bit about watches, and they know I live here and I understand what I'm buying. Just like yesterday, I was walking in a Rolex shop in a mall, and they started telling me what it was in steel, what was in two-tone, what was automatic. If you don't tell them anything, they think you're just a tourist who knows nothing about watches. Anyway, with the dealer, okay, so that watch there, it looks good. It's got a great complication. It's kind of rare. You sit down with the dealer, turn the crown. The watch is running. You negotiate a price. As soon as you give the money, preferably cash here in Hong Kong, to the dealer, you're stuck with that dealer. So if the next day there's a problem with the watch, you're stuck with his goodwill to fix it. Yes, he says you get a 6 months warranty on the watch, but that doesn't mean, let's say you buy a Vacheron Constantin, something that happened to me. Well, I didn't buy it. I was about to. A chronograph, a reissue of one of their famous chronographs. If you have a problem the next day, you bring it back. It's a high horology piece, finished to the Geneva seal level. What's going to happen to it? Are they going to send it to Vacheron for a $2,000 overhaul? Of course not. They're going to give it to their watchmaker who you know nothing about, who's probably not certified by the brand. He's going to try to fix it as cheaply as possible without going through a full overhaul. And is he going to replace a piece? If he has to replace a piece, how long is it going to take? Is it going to replace it with a piece finished to the same level? Probably not. And they give you the watch back. You look at it, even with a loop, you might not see what has been replaced, understand why. They're gonna be pretty cagey about it probably, and now that's gonna stay in your brain forever. You're gonna wonder, when is this watch gonna break? Do I have to send it to the manufacturer? Am I gonna have to pay all that cost? So always when you buy a high horology piece, think about someday down the line, if the watch has a problem, it can cost you a fortune. And even if it doesn't have a problem, people will factor in that it's going to cost them $1,000, $2,000 if they buy it from you. So that's going to be what you're going to be dealing with. So the whole second-hand market is really hyped right now with high profile online dealers. But be very careful, and that's why people love Rolex, is because they're much more solid inside, and and the movements are usually pretty simple, apart from the Yachtmaster and the Sky Dweller. So they don't cost a fortune to service, even at Rolex. Any other brand is getting very speculative. That doesn't mean that you can't find a gem. A friend of mine loves Cartier, and I gotta say, I really like some of them. The Collection Privée, the CP ones, where they partnered with famous up-and-coming watchmakers to make perpetual calendars and chronographs and whatnot. Those are very sought after, especially with the box and paper. But again, perpetual calendar, if there's any problem, is Cartier going to be willing to service it? Are you going to have to try to find that watchmaker? How much is that going to cost you? How many months are you going to be without the watch? And that's why you find those watches at a bargain. A perpetual calendar is very complicated to fix, and you don't want to give it to any hack. Speaking of calendars, the worst watches to buy if you have a big rotation is calendars. Any calendar, unless it's a longer with a, like mine, my annual calendar with a great system, a pusher on the side that's going to readjust everything. But all the other ones usually have side pushers, which are the only way to readjust quickly, unless you want to cycle, roll the crown on and on and on, which is not going to be that great for the movement anyway. And those pushers, in a humid climate, there's always a bit of risk there of humidity coming in. And anyway, it's fragile, and you have to push all the way in, all the way out. If you have to do it 15 times, you let it run out for 2 weeks, you have to push 15 times to bring it back in line. Make sure the moon phase is right again, if it's not properly, if it's not one of those systems which is fully coordinated. Trust you me, it's a real drag. And so it cost me and it doesn't matter if the watch cost you $3,000 or $300,000. It's still the same number of parts, 600 parts in that movement. Like my Zenith Chronomaster full calendar, it's a lot of parts in that watch. It's a high beat chronograph. And I gave it to a classic watch repair. Cost me 5,000 or 6,000 Hong Kong dollars. So pretty serious cost there. It's like 800 US. Thank God I bought the watch. I mean, I knew when I was buying it that it never had been serviced, but they had to replace a piece. It took a long time, weeks to get it. It was a tiny piece, and when I got it back, it was running fine. It's a watch which used to be chronometer spec, but chronometer, again, whatever you buy chronometer spec, is when it leaves the manufacturer. 2 weeks later, it might not be that already, whatever brand it is, and certainly not a year later. And if you have a service outside of the manufacturers, or even at the manufacturers, I'm not even sure all of them bring them back to chronometer spec. Again, it's a gimmick, and it's gonna weigh on your mind. So this watch is running good now, but I have a big rotation. I've let it power down a few times, and then when I was trying to readjust the day, it would go backwards instead of forwards. And then when I was readjusting the moon, it got stuck a couple of times. I had to stop the chrono to unstuck somehow the movement, and it worked. But there you go. Now I have this feeling that the watch is not whole, if you want. So it's a word of warning for you coming to Hong Kong or anywhere in the world. But here in Hong Kong, you have so many like this complicated skeletonized watch here from Maurice Lacroix, which, by the way, do have some very nice complications. You have to understand the prices, factor in this huge risk that you take. And I've been slagging a bit, bad mouthing a bit the watch box, but to their credit, they're gonna bring the watches to as close to possible to manufacturer spec, and that's gonna be factoring to their price, and they give you a solid 2-year warranty. So not a great place to trade in your watch. It's a bit disheartening when you try to trade in a brand new watch that really doesn't need any work on it, and they give you half retail or a third of retail. I would understand for something older that is going to need some work to be up to their standards, and that's fine to have a high standards. All the watches you see on the screen here, which ones need a service again? How long have they been there in the window? Are the oil inside all dried up? So it's a bit all the things you have to think about if you want to buy for your enjoyment or somewhat within some kind of investment purpose. It's not easy. And yeah, just wanting to reiterate, going to Rolex shops here, it's very frustrating. They're never going to show you any of the hot models. But then again, maybe tomorrow's hot model is the one that is on display in front of you. Who knows? As you might have seen in the beginning of the videos, on my first images from Bangkok, I was checking out the chronograph, also known as the Thunderbird, those Datejusts with a rotating bezel. Those are still cool. Some of them are still priced okay. Some of them are rising in value. You can find new old stocks as well. But risky again, you think, oh, that's a good idea, it's original, it's cool. It's kind of watch I think you might get tired of pretty quickly. I would bank, if I was really banking on something, somewhat an investment, or at least something that's going to keep its value, I would just look at something well made, something original, but not too crazy funky in the look. Something that has a style, a great aesthetic. And we tend to all look at the same things these days through Instagram and YouTube. I mean, a while ago, I really thought that green Submariner, and I think many people who maybe own it right now, I think 5 years ago, thought it was really ugly and weird. Now everybody likes it. Is it going to last forever? I don't know. But I think what's going to last is the beauty of Patek Calatrava, for example. And you can get some great bargains. I got a couple of those in my collection. Maybe I would look into that if it pleases you. Of course, you have to enjoy wearing them, not abusing them. But I think, or maybe you want to collect, like some people you've seen on the Hodinkee, all Speedmasters, or all Cartier, beautiful watches as well. For Cartier, you really have to go back to the days when they were really paying attention to the movements and everything. All right, let me know in the comments what you think, especially you guys living here in Hong Kong. Some great guys have reached out and put some interesting comments. Tell us which dealers you recommend. Sometimes it's harder for me because they don't always speak very good English. And some of them are not on the street, on the ground level. Sometimes I know a couple of them that advertise internationally on Chrono24 as well, who are up in the buildings. Let us know a bit which dealers you recommend, which ones you like. As usual, be careful what you purchase, and make sure that no watch is really stretching your budget. I think to buy anything watch related, fun related, you should be able to buy 10 of them. If you only have the money to buy one single watch and it's an FP jaune, and if you lost it or if you broke it, you have to service it, it would be put you in a financial jeopardy. Then you should not buy that. And that's why people have little collections rather than having 2 or 3 very expensive watches, as you don't want to put all your eggs in the same basket. And before I leave you, I've been working from home for the past 10 days, and throughout the weekend, throughout the week, I've kept my Tudor Black Bay 58 on the wrist. I absolutely understand the watch now, and I really enjoy it, and it's taking a few knocks already. Alright guys, take care. Speak to you in the next one. Bye bye.